Hello folks and welcome back to the show. So this week's quickie, impromptu, more or less unedited video, we're going to talk about my current top 6 fragrances from the House of Chanel, a fragrance video I've made a few times over the years, and let's look at my current top 6 from this illustrious French house. Before we do that, if you would like to buy fragrance samples in the USA, Canada or Puerto Rico, please go to myfragrancesamples.com. That's my recommended place to get your fragrance samples over their amazing range of niche and designer scents. The link is in the description of this video. Okay, Chanel, of course, one of the most prestigious, if not maybe the most prestigious, hard word to say, fragrance brands in the designer realm. Just a classy house to me. I think, houses like Paco Rabanne or Johnny-come-latelys like Dolce & Gabbana and Jean Paul Gaultier have some great stuff, but you cannot beat the historic French House of Chanel. What do you think about that? We're going to mix up designer fragrances from them and others that some consider niche in their higher end range. First of all, then my pick here, Boy de Chanel EDP Eau de Parfum Olivier Polge composition, released in 2016, so somewhat recent release from this great house. This is a fantastic aromatic fougere, something of an oriental fougere or something like that, maybe an amber fougere. I'm not sure the exact definition. Notes in this one, you've got lavender, grapefruit, lemon, geranium, orange blossom, rose, white musk, heliotrope, sandalwood, vanilla, moss, coumarin. So this is a gorgeous, rather unisex actually, which is kind of rare for a fougere. We tend to associate those with the masculine world. Boy de Chanel is a fantastic fragrance. It is really a lovely powdery fougere, a little bit leaning towards the feminine side of things with a little bit of a floral undertone to it, but it just smells like this really nice, fantastic talcum powder or something like that. Very, very refined and crisp and elegant. Love the way these bottles are. Very simplistic, but I do love that design from the brand. Just great taste in a bottle. Very dapper and well presented kind of aura. Something of a modern aura. We tend to think fougères smell old-fashioned and like the 80s or whatever, the 70s. This one doesn't have any dated feel. In my humble opinion, I could be completely wrong about that, of course. Okay, next selection then. It has to be in here, of course, doesn't it? And this is, of course, Egoiste. Chanel Egoiste, 1990 release. Perfumer is Jacques Polge, the father of Olivier Polge. 1990 release, Brazilian rosewood, my favourite kind of rosewood in this one. Italian rosewood, forget it. Brazilian rosewood, now you're talking. Coriander, mahogany, Sicilian mandarin, again, obviously the only mandarin I care for. Cinnamon, damask rose, carnation, sandalwood, tobacco, vanilla, leather, amber, and ambrette. So there is a certain freshness about this one, but really it is all about the sandalwood. It is a little bit spicy. It has a touch of sweetness too, but the main thing I really pick up on this is the sandalwood, a beautiful, exquisite, creamy sandalwood note. How do we describe the smell of sandalwood? It's very hard. You just have to smell it. Go and smell Egoiste if you haven't already got it. This is obviously an old fragrance. The reformulations from Chanel, of course, do change the smell a tiny bit each time. I have to say they rarely make a reformulation that really sucks though, so you can still happily go and get the modern version today. Egoiste from Chanel, absolutely still a 10 out of 10 fragrance for me. Okay, next up, it had to be in the list. I'm sorry that perhaps this list has an element of predictability if you're familiar with my tastes. Antaeus from 1981, Jacques Polge again. Wonderful chypre fragrance, myrrh, clary sage, coriander, bergamot, lime, Amalfi lemon, my favourite kind of lemon, rose, thyme, basil, and we also have jasmine, castoreum, oak moss, patchouli, and of course French labdanum. Australian labdanum, I'm not interested. French labdanum, now you're talking. Antaeus really is a remarkable thing. There is quite a significant degree of freshness in this fragrance, which is often underestimated or understated by reviewers. It is somehow, or sometimes called a powerhouse 80s style fragrance. I think it has very little in common with things like Kouros from 1981 from Yves Saint Laurent, and it's a very refined masculine fragrance. It has a beautiful mixture of rose with bitter oak moss, a classic chypre fragrance with an added level of darkness and complexity, and of course that essential labdanum incense-like ingredient that we always get or should get with chypre fragrances. Really, really enigmatic, and Egoiste and Antaeus really good maybe for the autumn, winter seasons. Boy de Chanel, and they can all, you can wear any of them anytime. Boy de Chanel maybe leaning a bit more like a spring type of vibe. Really love Chanel's Antaeus. Let's move on. You may be surprised at my next selection because few people include this one in their Chanel top whatever list. I wonder why. This is Eau de Cologne. Chanel Eau de Cologne was released back in 2007, and it's Jack Polge again, the perfumer. 75ml of this one, by the way, £136. The previous one there, the Antaeus, £84 in the UK for 100ml. Likewise, Egoiste, same price. And the Chanel Boy Expensive from the Exclusives range, 75ml there, £170. You could even splash out 200ml of the Boy there with about £297 in the UK. So this one here, the Eau de Cologne de Chanel, is expensive. Could be worth it, though, if you really like citrus aromatic fragrances. 2007 release. Lemon, bergamot, citruses, green notes, neroli, petitgrain, spicy notes, musk, and tonka bean. It's really their take on the classic Eau de Cologne style, first pioneered by the Farina Eau de Cologne in the 18th century. 4711, of course, a famous version of this one. Neroli Portofino from Tom Ford. If you like things like this is one of my favourite versions of that. Also, you could try Guerlain's Eau de Cologne Imperial. This may be just my favourite. If you want something fresh, citrusy with a lot of neroli notes and a soapy clean smell, maybe not bags of complexity or character. Well, there is a subtle refinement and complexity. I absolutely adore this. And, sometimes date situations when you don't want to smell polarizing, like, will the woman like oud or leather or whatever? Just smell clean with Chanel Eau de Cologne. You won't go far wrong any time of the year. Next up then, more of a modern style, although actually I think the year was only 2008. Chanel Allure Homme Edition Blanche. Edition Blanche, Allure Homme, Allure, you know what I mean. Allure Homme Edition Blanche. Okay, they call this a lemon meringue pie or something. I don't know. Jack Polge again, 2008. Sicilian lemon, Madagascar vanilla, Calabrian bergamot, rose, pink pepper, sandalwood, tonka bean, Tahitian vetiver, musk, and amber and cedar. So a really nice citrusy smell with a hint of subtle sweetness and a kind of fizzy aldehyde feel. Really, really good, versatile fragrance. If you find the citrusy freshness of Chanel Eau de Cologne a little bit too old-fashioned style or a little bit too Eau de Cologne style, you may prefer Edition Blanche. I think it's still really a great modern classic from the brand. Don't really find myself excited by any of the Bleu de Chanel iterations, which of course might be compulsory in many people's top 5 Chanel lists, but it's not going to make mine. It's actually a top 6, I forgot to tell you. Oh, by the way, guys, Gravitas Essentia is back in stock in the USA and Canada. Norton & Wilson Gravitas Essentia, the fantastic follow-up to the original Gravitas. Follow the link in the description. An amazing fragrance, and we are so happy to be back in stock. We may be making ourselves available in other countries outside of the USA, Canada, and the UK very soon. Stay tuned, folks. Okay, next up, again, it had to be in the list. We are going to include here, let's just clear the stage for this one. I really love Chanel Pour Monsieur. The first fragrance from the house, and just think how different life was back then, because they released Pour Monsieur in 1955, and then it wasn't until 1981 that they went ahead and released Antaeus. That kind of thing doesn't happen anymore, right? It was Henri Robert, the perfumer, and the note listing gives you Sicilian lemon, petitgrain, neroli, cardamom, ginger, coriander, basil, oak moss, vetiver, and cedar. Again, £84 or thereabouts for your 100ml in the UK. So Pour Monsieur from Chanel really is an exquisite composition. It is classy, it is citrusy, it is fresh, and it is somehow a little bit spicy too, with a pronounced lavender note too. Very, very interesting stuff and very, very classy. Still completely wearable today. A little bit subtle in its performance and projection. None of these are really beast mode. Egoiste probably the strongest of the bunch. Antaeus performs okay. The rest are a little bit on the lighter side. I think that's fine. This is a really classic, old school, gentlemanly fragrance. And if you want to smell citrus, green, bitter, oak moss, it's kind of a chypre fragrance with citrus leanings. Very, very subtle, but very, very classy indeed, and a little bit spicy. And a certain warming quality about this one with that's inimitable Chanel touch of class. That's what all of these exude, class and good taste. You can have other brands, Paco Rabanne, 1 Million and stuff, which are all sweet and syrupy, and that can be fun. So can La Malle and its flankers. They're not always classy. These fragrances are. That's why I like Chanel. What did you think of my top 5 list? Let me know in the comments down below. I will see you in the... Oh, wristwatch. Wristwatch of the day is this one. Unusual one for me today, and this is a Chateau chronograph. A chronograph made in Switzerland. Not doing the best job trying to give you a wrist shot there. So Chateau chronograph made in Switzerland. I think around about the 1970s, and I picked it up for a couple of £100 or thereabout online a few years ago. Got my own little beads of rice aftermarket bracelet. Again, that's a vintage. And it's a chronograph. So what happens there is you've got two separate dials. And one of them is actually this one, the one lower there, is actually just telling you the seconds within each minute. The big red hand there moves then when you press this button. And that would tick round and do a stopwatch thing, and the other dial up there would keep count of how many minutes your stopwatch had been going. And before you had iPhones and before you had digital stopwatches and Casios and stuff, this would be how people maybe timed someone doing something that required timing. How exciting. And maybe you're frying an egg and you need 3 minutes. Or boiling an egg. Anyway, I like the design of it. It's charming. I love these old chronographs, and I'd like to get a more fancy one like an Amiga Speedmaster, but this has a certain charm about it too. So if I want to stop the hand there, we've stopped it, and then this button at the top hopefully will return the red hand to the top. Isn't that neat? Kind of groovy. It's about 38mm diameter. Okay, Archie Luxury would call it a shitter. I like it. Let me know what you think about that. Remember, whatever you're doing in life, let's project. And although sometimes life may stink, at least we can always smell good. See you next time, guys. Bye.